Hey friends, Sean from Draft Therapy here, and on today's review for you, one more year for this brewery and they'll be able to drive. Fifteenth is a 10.5% blended barrel-aged Grand Cru from Surly Brewing in Twin Cities, Minnesota. The Grand Cru is one of my favorite styles from way back when I started drinking craft beer. I used to love the Grand Cru from Michigan Brewing Company, but sadly they went out of business. And since then, I haven't been able to find another one that's just readily available. I picked a few up here and there, but nobody that makes one on a consistent basis. So this beer is getting me a little bit excited. Plus, this is the first beer I'm going to be reviewing from Surly Brewing. So let's get a look at the label. We'll get a look at everything else going on. We'll get it into a glass. But first, I'd like to thank my executive producers, Brian Kramer, David Jeffries, Chad Shirk, and Cam Freeman for helping to bring this review to you today. If you'd like to become a producer, help out the channel, or maybe even just throw me a couple bucks to buy me a beer, take a look at my Patreon at patreon.drafttherapy.com, where you can get early access to these videos and a few other special perks available only to patrons. Let's take a look at the label, but before we do that, I wanted to show you this beer. I'll close the box to make it look like I didn't just open it. This beer came in this really cool box. It is basically the same thing as what's going on the can, but I'll insert a few shots maybe at the end of this video to give you a kind of look at what the box itself looks like. But yeah, so on the front of it, the can is like, the label's like a matte label. It's not shiny. It's just very matte. There's not any shine to it, whereas the box is kind of silver and purple. This one is just purple with the same kind of face in this really cool, it almost looks like an Alex Grey kind of style. Alex Grey from the Tool covers and stuff like that. On the top here, it starts out with the Surly Brewing S. It says Surly Brewing Company, Twin Cities, Minnesota. Again, it has the face on it. It looks like all these tree branches or vines or veins coming off of it. On the back here, it says brewed and canned by Surly Brewing Company, Minneapolis and Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. It has the government warning. It says it's 10.5% alcohol by volume. 1 pint. It has the independent craft beer logo. It says the name of the beer, which is 15, which is, as I mentioned before, a blended barrel-aged Grand Cru ale. This was canned, not packed, but canned at least on August 17th, 2021. This is a Grand Cru. So you can age these beers for a long time. Since it's a blended barrel-aged Grand Cru, you could probably age it, I would say, near indefinite. And if you're wondering what blended means, it's like a cuvee. They take maybe a couple different versions of the beer, or a couple different, barrels, and they blend them all together. They come out with something like this. So let's go ahead and crack it. We'll put a nose on the can. This is 10.5%. So it's not super crazy. It's not super like a KBS, it's like a 12% or anything like that, but it's 10.5, so that's not nothing. Let's put a nose on it. So it has a bit of like a bourbon barrel kind of characteristic, or a liquor barrel, I'd say whiskey barrel. That's really what I'm getting out of this. Grand Crus to me remind me a lot of, and I haven't had a Grand Cru in a while, but they remind me of like a Belgian style. So they have that bit of that kind of banana, that clove kind of flavor. They're generally very smooth. They have a little bit of a sweetness to it, which is nice. But let's just pour this one and we're going to judge it on its own merits. As you can see here, it's coming out a little bit of a amber, like a darker amber color. I'm pouring it into a snifter, a large snifter style glass. And we're going to pour a little bit more in there. The head, I did get about, I was getting maybe like a finger and a half. I'm getting about a finger right now. As you can see from the overhead, the head is like dissipating very quickly. I can get the aroma of the barrel. I'm assuming that I didn't do much research on this, unfortunately, but I'm assuming this is probably bourbon barrel aged. And let's go ahead and give it a hold up to the light first. It's coming out as a bit of a reddish kind of color. To you, it looks probably a little bit more like a copper, dark amber color. A little bit redder to me. But yeah, what I'm getting out of this is, I'm going to say it's bourbon barrel aged. That's the kind of, I'm getting like a bourbon aroma out of this, but it's also got like a bit of almost a citrus kind of sweet aroma to it. I'm thinking that this is probably going to be similar to like Brewery of Vivant's Wizard Burial Ground, something like that. But let's go ahead and try it out. Cheers. Let's talk about the mouthfeel first. It's got a really nice mouthfeel. It's got a bit of a thickness to it. It's a little bit heavier than medium. It's not quite syrupy, but it is a little bit more on that heavier end. It's got a nice kind of smooth mouthfeel to it, though. It goes down really easily. There's a lot of flavors going on in this, though. So let's get another drink and we'll talk about that. So the thing I noticed almost immediately on the first taste is this kind of citrus, orangey sweetness to it. It's got, like I said, it's got this bit of a orangey sweetness to it, but it's spiced. There's also a spicy note in there, maybe like almost like a clove or like a nutmeggy kind of flavor in there. It tastes a lot like a barrel, like a barrel-aged Belgian, maybe like a Belgian quad. It's got kind of that. I mean, I'm picking up on a little bit of a booziness on the finish. There's a bit of a boozy kind of bite to it. I don't know if I can really put my finger on what the barrel aging process that went into this. Like I said before, I didn't do enough research to know if they say what kind it is. They just say barrel aged, so I'm going to assume it's a bourbon barrel. It has a bit of a bourbony sweet kind of characteristic on the finish. It's 10.5%, like I said, but it doesn't really have, there's a bit of a booziness, but there's not really much of a burn to it. The aftertaste, like I don't have a boozy, burny swallow, but the aftertaste is a bit of a boozy, there's almost a hint of like a burn on the edge of my tongue. On the edge of my tongue. I only have one, contrary to popular belief. I have one tongue, and I have a bit of like a burn around just the outside edge of it. This is definitely a sipper because of, like I said, how kind of viscous it's very smooth, but and it goes down very easily. But you, like I said, with that kind of aftertaste, with that burning aftertaste, it's not something that I would want to just chug. It's like all the different flavors that come in, that a bit of that citrus, a bit of that kind of clovey, a bit of that spicy kind of note with that little bit of a bourbon finish, follow up on the whole kind of, pulling the whole flavor together is something that I want to enjoy. It's not something I just want to kind of down. Again, it's 10.5%, so maybe not the wisest idea to go ahead and decide if you're going to down one of these or not. But yeah, really interesting beer. I don't know if, like I said, it's a blended barrel-aged Grand Cru. I don't know, besides kind of that bit of that spiciness, a bit of that clovey kind of flavor, I'm getting a citrus again, like I said at the beginning. I don't know if I would try this kind of blind and say, oh, that's a Grand Cru, like for sure. Because the Grand Crus that I'm used to trying are not barrel-aged, number one. And, they just seem like they're maybe a little bit more towards the lighter end, and maybe that's just, like I said, the Grand Cru I have the most experience with was Michigan Brewing Company's Grand Cru, which I they don't make anymore because the company, the brewing company doesn't exist anymore, so that'd be kind of hard. I don't know if anybody would if you would even age those, and I don't know, how true to the style it was, but what I remember Grand Cru being, and my friend Dave actually homebrewed a Grand Cru, which I don't know if that's your best kind of homebrew beer to do, like your second or third try out. Seems like it might be a little bit more difficult, but I don't remember it quite having a taste quite like this. But to me, like Grand Crus are like the holy grail. That's like a beer that I really enjoy. I have a lot of fond memories of. When I saw this said Grand Cru, I was like, and don't get me wrong, I do like this beer. I just don't know if, because of all the added flavor that the barrel aging process added, I don't know if I would, like, if I was a super huge fan of Grand Crus. I guess if I was a really big fan of Grand Crus, I might try this because it's a little bit different than what I am expecting. For me personally, it doesn't scratch that itch of a Grand Cru because, like I said, in my mind, I have a different kind of flavor for a Grand Cru. I could be totally wrong and off base on what Grand Cru should taste like because I haven't had one for so long, and I have like such great memories of years gone by with that Grand Cru. This one is a great beer on its own. I love having that citrus note. I love, again, having that bit of that spiciness, that cloviness, and having that bourbon barrel aging on the tail end to kind of round it all out. I think this beer stands on its own. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, maybe you haven't had a Surly beer like me before. This is my first experience with Surly, so I like this beer for what it is. It's not something I would drink every day, but I think this is more of like one of those special event kind of things, or maybe like just a nightcap or finishing off a hard, like you worked, not necessarily worked out in the sun, but if it was more like a winter or a fall beer and you're like, it's Saturday evening, I got a fire out back, I'm going to sit around my fire and have a beer. This is a great, perfect beer. It will definitely warm you up at 10.5%. I don't know, it doesn't fit a Grand Cru in my mind, but again, that could be because of the barrel aging, could be because of the bourbon barrel aging process, adding the bourbon flavor to it on top of the kind of cloviness just kind of throws my whole idea of what a Grand Cru is kind of out the window. But I think this stands on its own right, and I'm looking forward to trying different beers from Surly, because if this is any kind of measure of quality of what Surly does, I don't have any doubt in my mind that I'll enjoy my next Surly beer. All right, friends, that has been 15 from Surly Brewing. Have you had this beer? Do you have a favorite from Surly? Do you have a favorite style you don't see much anymore? Let me know in the comments down below while you're down there. If you like beer, you might want to subscribe and click that bell. I'm here talking about beer twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's all for free for viewers just like you, and you might miss your newest favorite if you're not subscribed and getting those notifications. So until next time, I'm Sean from Draft Therapy. Thanks for stopping by. Remember, drink craft beer, support your local breweries, and most importantly, don't forget to treat yourself to a little draft therapy. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time. Cheers.